The Galactic Coalition spanned 1,000 systems, uniting countless species under its banner of technological superiority and military dominance. Its armies were a masterpiece of war, towering mechs armed with plasma cannons, infantry wielding particle disruptors that could vaporize targets in an instant, and starships bristling with weapons capable of rendering entire planets lifeless. To its members, the Coalition represented the pinnacle of civilization, a force so advanced that it viewed war less as a contest and more as a display of dominance. Among the Coalition's ranks, humans were a curiosity, an anomaly. A young species, barely off their home planet, they had no grand fleet, no cutting-edge technology. Instead, they relied on antiquated kinetic weapons that hurled projectiles, a method abandoned by the Coalition eons ago. Humans had been grudgingly allowed into the galactic fold, seen as more of a charity case than an equal partner. The Coalition leaders often joked about the primitive apes who still used sticks and stones in an age of directed energy and quantum warfare. Imagine fighting with bullets, one officer sneered during a briefing. Bullets. Like it's still the Stone Age. A species barely out of its cradle and already so eager to brawl. The room erupted in laughter, each species chiming in with their own jabs. Another added, "They're snipers, of all things. Who fights with lone shooters anymore? In our wars, we target fleets, planets, entire star systems. But these humans? They still rely on one person and a single shot. Pathetic." The Coalition's generals viewed Earth as an afterthought, a planet with no real strategic value. When humanity pushed back against certain Coalition edicts, refusing to surrender their planetary autonomy outright, it wasn't considered an act of rebellion worth negotiating. It was an irritation to be swatted away. A punitive expedition was quickly organized, framed as a peacekeeping mission to bring Earth in line. In truth, it was more of a demonstration, a flexing of the Coalition's strength. When the first Coalition dropships pierced Earth's atmosphere, they came with the arrogance of conquerors. Their troops, a mix of towering reptilian warriors, insectoid tacticians, and bioengineered super-soldiers, marched through ruined cities as though on a parade route. The sky was darkened by the shadows of massive orbital ships, their presence alone signaling Earth's futility. The initial landings were met with little resistance. Coalition forces made quick work of Earth's defenses, cutting through automated turrets and outdated missiles with laughable ease. "This isn't a war," a Coalition officer said, watching the chaos unfold from a command console. "It's pest control." Soldiers strolled through the rubble, their shields glimmering faintly as if mocking the very idea of vulnerability. Yet, amidst their confidence, small signs of resistance began to emerge. Coalition scouts reported strange disturbances, drones were being shot down with untraceable accuracy, patrols were ambushed and left disoriented, and equipment was found sabotaged in areas they believed secure. Some soldiers began to whisper of unseen enemies moving in the shadows. They spoke of sudden, precise attacks that left no trace of the perpetrator. A squad leader dismissed the chatter, barking, "This is Earth. What could they possibly have that threatens us? A rock and some bad aim?" But even his voice carried an edge of unease. In one ruined metropolis, a soldier paused mid-step, feeling eyes on him. He scanned the skeletal remains of skyscrapers towering above. There was nothing, no movement, no sound. Yet the sensation lingered, a subtle weight pressing on the back of his neck. When he voiced his concerns, his commander scoffed. "Relax. They're primitives. Shadows can't kill you." The arrogance of the Coalition remained unshaken. They could not fathom that anything on this backward planet could threaten them. They failed to consider that humanity's greatest weapon had never been their technology. It was their will to survive, and their ability to strike from the dark. Phantom lay motionless atop the crumbling remains of a skyscraper, the cold wind brushing against their face as they scanned the desolate city through the scope of their rifle. It wasn't much to look at, a battered piece of human ingenuity that had seen better days. The rifle, like Phantom, was a relic of a bygone era, customized over years to be a perfect extension of its wielder. It fired kinetic rounds, simple, solid metal projectiles, crafted with precision to pierce through whatever stood in their path. Outdated, perhaps, but in Phantom's hands, it was nothing short of art. The weapon had a name, etched into its barrel, Resolve. It was a fitting moniker. Phantom had lived by it long before the invasion, long before the Coalition had turned their home into a battlefield. Their mind wandered to the life they once had. A family, now gone. A duty, once bound to peacekeeping missions on Earth, now consumed by a desperate need to defend what little remained. Memories of laughter around a dinner table were stained by the image of Coalition dropships raining fire on their city. Phantom's resolve was born in that moment. If survival was the only gift humanity could offer, then they would deliver it one bullet at a time. With a slow, deliberate breath, Phantom pushed the thoughts aside and focused on the task at hand. The city was a labyrinth of shadows and broken structures, perfect for a sniper. Phantom moved through it with calculated precision, scouting for the perfect vantage point. Each rooftop, each collapsed building, became a potential stage for an ambush. Every angle was assessed for visibility and cover. The Coalition troops, so assured of their superiority, had no understanding of how the terrain could betray them. Phantom's fingers brushed against the rifle's trigger as they adjusted the scope, calibrating for wind resistance and distance. The Galactic shields might deflect energy blasts, but they were laughably ill-prepared for the simplicity of a high-velocity round. Phantom knew this from studying the enemy, analyzing their movements, watching how their technology worked, and finding the cracks in the armor. The Galactics relied on their equipment to protect them, never expecting to face an adversary willing to exploit its weaknesses with creativity and determination. They allowed themselves a brief smile, a grim satisfaction. The Coalition's hubris was their greatest weakness, and humanity's resilience was its greatest strength. Phantom didn't need advanced tech or overwhelming firepower. They needed patience. A flicker of movement caught their eye. Below, a group of Galactic officers stood clustered in what appeared to be a command zone, their arrogance plain as they barked orders and gestured toward holographic displays. One figure stood out, a high-ranking officer adorned with ornate armor that gleamed faintly in the dim light. Phantom's pulse slowed, and their world narrowed to the crosshairs of the scope. The calculations were automatic. Distance, 784 meters. Wind speed, moderate. Shield distortion, minimal. Phantom's finger rested lightly on the trigger, the officer's chest squarely in the sights. They exhaled, slow and measured, timing the shot with the natural pause between heartbeats. The silence was broken by the sharp crack of the rifle, the sound almost lost in the vast emptiness of the ruined city. A single kinetic round tore through the air, unimpeded by energy fields or advanced armor. The Galactic officer staggered, confusion etched into their features as they crumpled to the ground. For a moment, the remaining soldiers stood frozen, their disbelief tangible. Then chaos erupted. Phantom watched as the Galactic scrambled, barking orders and scanning the area with equipment that would prove useless. They hadn't accounted for a weapon like this. Their shields, designed to repel plasma and disrupt energy particles, were useless against the raw, brutal simplicity of a projectile moving faster than sound. Where did it come from? One soldier shouted, their voice tinged with panic. Find them, barked another. Phantom was already on the move. They abandoned the vantage point, blending into the shadows as the Galactics unleashed a torrent of firepower at the empty rooftop. The hunter had become the hunted, but Phantom felt no fear. This was their domain. The Galactics had the technology, but Phantom had the terrain, the will, and an intimate knowledge of how to turn their arrogance into a weapon. Sliding into a new position, Phantom allowed themselves a small, fleeting thought, one down, many to go. The Galactic forces responded swiftly, their humiliation over the officer's death fueling a relentless pursuit. High above the city, sleek drones swept through the ruins, their sensors scanning for any heat signatures, movement, or trace of Phantom's presence. Equipped with advanced thermal imaging and motion detectors, the drones formed a tight net over the city. Below, soldiers moved in coordinated units, their footsteps echoing ominously through the empty streets. "Thermals are clear in Sector 3, a soldier reported, their voice sharp with tension. Switching to energy signature scans. The drones hummed as they deployed new measures, tracing even the faintest disturbances in the electromagnetic spectrum. When the scans yielded nothing, the Galactics escalated further. Aerial bombardments rained down on suspected sniper positions, collapsing entire buildings into clouds of ash and rubble. Phantom's earlier perch was obliterated within moments, but it was a futile gesture. Phantom had moved long before, slipping into the shadows as if they were never there. "Ridiculous," a commander muttered, watching the destruction from a fortified outpost. "One human, armed with a relic, making fools of us. End this." But Phantom was no ordinary target. The city's shattered infrastructure, once a symbol of humanity's fragility, had become an ally. Phantom moved through the skeletal remains of old sewers and utility tunnels, emerging only to shift locations or set traps. Every movement was calculated, every decision precise. Phantom rigged explosives in strategic locations, planting tripwires along routes that the Galactics would inevitably use. A simple spool of wire and scavenged grenades were enough to turn a tight alley into a death trap. When soldiers triggered one of these, the resulting blast echoed through the city, and Phantom would use the confusion to relocate. In one instance, a group of soldiers approached what appeared to be a discarded weapon case. As they reached for it, an EMP device detonated, frying their equipment and leaving them blind. Phantom struck moments later, picking off the disoriented squad with surgical precision before vanishing again. The Galactics, used to overwhelming their enemies with brute force and superior tech, found themselves outmatched by something they couldn't quantify: human ingenuity. For every step they took, Phantom seemed 2 steps ahead. As the hours wore on, their frustration turned into fear. Soldiers moved in tighter formations, their movements hesitant, their bravado diminished. Even the officers barked orders with less authority, their eyes darting nervously at every shadow. Phantom took full advantage of their growing paranoia. Each kill was precise, calculated not just to thin their numbers but to erode their morale. A single shot would drop a soldier, and Phantom would let the body lie in full view of their comrades, a silent warning that nowhere was safe. It wasn't just the physical traps that haunted the Galactics, it was the unseen hand orchestrating their demise. They began hearing whispers over their comms, static-laced and unnerving. A voice, calm and cold, cut through their chatter. "You're not invincible. You're just targets." The effect was devastating. A squad, already on edge, found themselves surrounded by the ruins of a collapsed building. Phantom's traps ensured their comms were jammed, leaving them cut off from reinforcements. As panic set in, they turned on each other, accusing one another of failing to spot the sniper. Phantom watched silently from a hidden perch, waiting until their panic reached its peak before striking. Another clean shot, another soldier down. The remaining troops scattered, abandoning their fallen comrade as they fled. Phantom's voice crackled over their failing comms once more, dripping with disdain. "You can't run from what you can't see." By the time the Galactics realized they were being hunted, it was too late. They had come to Earth as conquerors, confident in their superiority, but now they were nothing more than prey in a war they had no idea how to fight. The city wasn't just a battlefield, it was Phantom's domain, and every shadow, every corner, was a weapon waiting to be used. Phantom crouched low in the shadows of a gutted building, watching a squad of Galactics march through the ruins. Their movements were coordinated, almost mechanical, their shimmering shields casting faint glows around their forms. But Phantom's sharp eye caught something others might overlook, a faint flicker in the shield near the neck of one soldier, barely perceptible. A blind spot. The realization hit like a bolt of clarity. The galactic shields, designed to repel plasma and energy-based weaponry, had a vulnerability at the base of the skull where overlapping fields weakened. It was a tiny flaw, but for a sniper of Phantom's caliber, it was all they needed. Hours of patient observation confirmed it wasn't an anomaly. Every galactic soldier's shield carried the same flaw, an oversight born of arrogance in their design. Phantom decided to test this discovery. When the squad passed into the open, a single, well-placed shot cracked through the air. The soldier fell instantly, the kinetic round punching through the blind spot and disabling the shield in a microsecond. The remaining troops spun in confusion, firing blindly at empty windows. Phantom was already gone, relocating to exploit their panic further. But the discovery wasn't enough. A larger target was needed, something that could shift the tide. Phantom's next move came after hours of reconnaissance. The Galactics had established a fortified command center in the heart of the city. At its core was a massive generator that powered their defensive grid, protecting the structure and its critical equipment. Taking it down would disrupt their operations entirely. With meticulous planning, Phantom maneuvered into position, evading drones and patrols. The generator was well guarded, its location shielded by overlapping troops. It took a daring risk, threading through sewer tunnels to emerge behind enemy lines. A single, perfectly aimed shot rang out, and the generator exploded in a cascade of sparks and flames. The command center's shields faltered, and chaos erupted. Galactic scrambled to restore power, their communication lines overwhelmed with panicked reports. Phantom vanished again, leaving only destruction in their wake. Within the command center, the Galactic Field Commander, General Orvek, watched the scene unfold on a cracked display screen. Orvek was no stranger to war. A battle-hardened veteran of countless campaigns, he had thought Earth would be another footnote in his career, a minor rebellion crushed under the Coalition's heel. But the sniper, this Phantom, had changed everything. "They've studied us," Orvek muttered, pacing the room. "This isn't random. They know our weaknesses." His aides remained silent, unwilling to challenge his growing frustration. Orvek's reptilian features twisted into a grimace. He couldn't deny the truth, he had underestimated humanity. These primitives had used their environment, their ingenuity, to dismantle everything he'd assumed invincible. "Set a trap," Orvek ordered, his voice sharp. "Draw them out. This ends now." Using Phantom's tactics against them, Orvek baited the sniper with a high-value target, a mock officer unit with exposed patrols. It was a calculated move, and it nearly worked. Phantom, perched on a distant rooftop, sighted the decoy and prepared to strike. But something felt wrong, the patrol's movements were too predictable, too rehearsed. Phantom hesitated, instincts honed by countless hours of battle raising alarm bells. The moment saved their life. A secondary unit, hidden in the rubble, unleashed a barrage of suppressing fire, pinning Phantom in place. Drones swooped in, their scanners locking onto Phantom's position. The next moments were a blur. Phantom fired a series of precise shots, disabling 2 drones and blasting through a wall to create an escape route. With the Galactics closing in, they navigated the collapsing structure, narrowly avoiding capture. A final burst of effort carried them into the sewer tunnels, disappearing into the labyrinth below. Shaken but undeterred, Phantom emerged hours later in a hidden resistance bunker. The near capture had only solidified their resolve. Using a salvaged transmitter, Phantom sent a coded signal to humanity's scattered resistance forces. The message was simple: the Galactics can bleed. Fight, *. Across the city and beyond, humanity's scrappy fighters took heart. Inspired by Phantom's success, they launched coordinated ambushes on isolated galactic units. Makeshift explosives, guerrilla tactics, and sheer determination turned the tide. A convoy was destroyed by a rigged bridge. A drone depot went up in flames. The once mighty coalition found itself bogged down in a war of attrition, its forces stretched thin and morale faltering. Phantom's actions had sparked a fire that no advanced technology could extinguish. Humanity wasn't just surviving, they were fighting back. And for the first time, the Galactics felt the weight of their mistakes. The Galactic Command Post was a fortress of alien ingenuity, a web of defenses humming with energy and bristling with patrols. Phantom lay in wait, hidden among the skeletal remains of a collapsed building. They adjusted their rifle, its barrel trained on the patrol closest to the outer perimeter. A calculated breath, a precise pull of the trigger, a guard fell, the body collapsing without a sound. Phantom advanced, using the chaos of earlier resistance skirmishes as cover. Every move was deliberate. Between silenced shots, they planted charges along vital points, ammunition depots, shield generators, structural supports. The layout of the command post was complex, but Phantom had memorized every detail from stolen schematics. Every step, every action was a step toward dismantling the Galactic occupation. As they approached the command center's core, Phantom knew what awaited. General Orvech, the brilliant and ruthless commander responsible for Earth's devastation, had fortified himself in a tower at the heart of the compound. Phantom had anticipated this encounter for weeks. The duel began abruptly. A plasma round seared through the air, hitting the rubble just inches from Phantom's cover. Orvech's voice crackled through a nearby comm system, "You've been impressive, human. But this ends here." Phantom didn't respond. They moved methodically, their rifles scanning for the faintest glint of light that would betray Orvech's position. Another shot from the Galactic sniper missed, but barely. The duel wasn't just physical, it was a mental chess game, each combatant testing the other's limits. Using their surroundings to their advantage, Phantom created a decoy by reflecting light off a shard of broken glass. Orvech took the bait, firing at the illusion. The shot revealed his position for a split second, and that was all Phantom needed. A single, perfectly aimed round pierced the tower window. Orvech's silhouette slumped against the console, his reign over Earth extinguished. The mission wasn't over. Phantom activated the detonator, and a series of explosions rippled through the compound. The charges ignited fuel reserves, collapsed infrastructure, and brought the Galactic Command Post to its knees. But the victory came at a cost. A stray piece of debris from the initial blast struck Phantom, tearing through their side. Blood seeped through their suit as Phantom staggered away from the crumbling compound. Every step was agony, but they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that this was the final blow Earth needed to turn the tide. Behind them, the command post burned, a towering inferno visible for miles. The retreat order came within hours. Galactic forces, disoriented and leaderless, began withdrawing. Their once unstoppable war machine had been crippled, its morale shattered. Earth had proven too costly to conquer. News of the victory spread like wildfire through resistance networks. Stories of the lone sniper who had brought the coalition to its knees inspired fighters across the globe. Phantom's actions became a rallying cry, a symbol of humanity's unbreakable spirit. In the aftermath, Phantom was brought to a hidden resistance base, their injuries treated with what limited resources the fighters could provide. As they recovered, waves of visitors arrived to pay their respects. Soldiers, civilians, even children came to see the person who had turned the tide of the war. Phantom remained silent through most of it, their mind lingering on the battles yet to come. The war wasn't over, not by a long shot. But Earth had earned something more valuable than any victory: hope. Days later, Phantom sat outside the makeshift infirmary, watching the sun rise over the horizon. The sky, scarred by war, still held a strange beauty. A young resistance fighter approached, holding a small medal fashioned from salvaged galactic tech. "This is for you," the fighter said. "You showed us we could fight back." Phantom accepted the token with a faint nod. Their gaze returned to the horizon, their thoughts calm for the first time in months. The battle had been won, but the fight for Earth's future was just beginning. Phantom would be ready. Humanity would endure.